Hello everyone and welcome to All About Film. So this video that we're seeing right now is going to discuss Lomography Orca 110 100 ISO film. We're going to look at how to use it, the film's characteristics, not that many technical details because it's a lomography film and they don't really publish that, and then sample images. Orca is a medium film rated 100 ISO, available only in 110. By special request, I'm going to show you how to use how to develop 110 film, black and white film at home. You could do this for color film as well. However, it's just more common to develop black and white at home. The first thing you're going to need is a reel that's capable of holding 110 film. Now, what you see here are two different styles that I have of that reel. They're loaded slightly different ways. Next, you're going to go into your 110 film cassette. You want to make sure that you have not fully advanced the paper off of the rear spool and into the take-up area. If you have, you're going to have to completely break apart that take-up area of your cassette in order to retrieve the film. If you haven't, then you can push the paper through the back of the 110 cassette until you can reach it, pull it out, and then the film should come out with it. After that, it's just a matter of how you load it onto your spool. Now, if 110 film spools were made in plastic, I don't know about it. I've only ever seen them in these two different styles of stainless steel. I also have an 8mm stainless steel reel. I have no idea where that even came from. I didn't know they made them that small. It's got to be for sub-mins. Developing 110 at home isn't all that hard as long as you have a 110 reel. Now, the hardest part about loading the 110 reel, by the way, is that the narrower the film is, the harder that it is to bow to get it to load onto the reels. That's why 120 is way easier to load than 35mm. 110 is very tricky to load. And after you load it, you've got to make sure while you're going and after you're done, if you can feel around it, if you have an open-sided reel like this one, that the film is not touching itself. And if it is, try to redo at least that part of it. And then you just develop it like anything else in a tank. A single 35mm reel tank will hold two 110 reels. So whatever the count of 35mm reels is for the tank you're using, double that or more for very tall tanks, and that's how many 110 reels it can hold. This section looks at my perception of different film characteristics. For grain, it's high, but that's largely amplified by the format and the requisite enlargement from 110 to get a print or a digital image. Were this a 35 or 120 film, I suspect the grain would be considered average to low. Tonality and tonal range are acceptable in even light, but extensive shadow clipping will occur in harsh light. Acutance is pretty good, but it's hampered slightly by the format again. The transitions from bright to dark are good and crisp, but appear slightly mushy due to enlargement requirements. Contrast is very high. Highlights tend to be preserved far better than shadows do, so anticipate highlight data loss in the blacks and plan for very dark shadows. It should surprise no one, by the way, that a film named Orca would have high contrast. Sharpness is stunningly good for the format. This is, without a doubt, the sharpest 110 film on the market. That's helped by it being the only black and white 110 film on the market, but it's a sharp 110 film that loses sharpness only due to the format's required enlargement. Dynamic range is barely acceptable in even light with a contrast curve that I have to imagine is steep. Not reversal film steep, but steep. Digital conversion, well, this is a black and white film, and you can easily digitize it with a DSLR, and it digitizes well in that way, especially if you shoot RAW, because a lot can be pulled from the negative. That said, even the lab scans used in this video turned out really well. So regardless of how you are developing this at home or at a lab, whether you're digitizing it at home or from your lab, you're going to have pretty good digital results. For good uses, this is a good daytime film if you embrace the contrast it will deliver. In even light, like fog or evening light, it will still yield high contrast, and that actually in those settings can be extremely beneficial to your images. Now, one last note. Anytime you venture into 110, you're going to run into substantial challenges with enlargement-related softness. Even if you're watching this video on your cell phone screen, these images that you're seeing are enlarged significantly. .110 pretty much locks you into what the camera wants to do, so there's not much to say here. Your best bet for controlling your images will come from your developer choice, your post work specifically as it relates to your digitization skill, and by developing and digitizing for low contrast negatives. That's going to give you the most editing flexibility. I tried HC110, which is specifically Legacy Pro L110 at 1+15, which is Dilution A, microdol-x, which again is specifically is Legacy Pro Mic X at 1+3, Rodinal at 1+25 and 1+100 with stand developing, and an unknown, probably XTOL stock developer for the 3 rolls that I sent to my lab. Picking a favorite developer is basically impossible. I didn't like or dislike any of them more or less than the others. And there really weren't even enough for me to name 3 that I liked and 3 that I disliked, because there's just not that much developer data available for this film. So honestly, and noting that I didn't try developers extensively, I'm pretty developer agnostic with this film in that they all delivered nice results with only slight aesthetic differences. And I think this owes to the film's nature as well as the image format. No matter what developer you use, you will get grain, and this film's image characteristic will break through whatever your developer wants to do like a cannonball through a cardboard box wall. Orca is my favorite 110 film. The competition isn't steep, but unlike other 110 films, I like the results that Orca yields. The look has to be embraced. There's no way around high grain and high contrast on 110. If you don't like that look, don't use 110. It also helps that, although expensive, Orca is the cheapest 110 film on the market if you develop at home. And the variety of known developer times on the massive development chart make it a film that can be widely used and developed at home. Orca is like the ringer on a company softball team. Orca is like the ringer on a company softball team. It's that guy your rich boss knows who used to play AAA ball and carries the rest of your bumbling, confused players into the intercompany playoffs. Orca makes 110 film look good. And it's the only 110 film in production today which can make and support that claim. If you really want to shoot 110, shoot Orca and skip the rest of the 110 films out there. Orca will deliver the best results. Orca will provide the most interesting images. Orca will perform the most consistently. This is a good be-all and end-all 110 film option, and you will honestly want for nothing, with the exception of color, if you use this film. Also, developing this at home lets you reclaim the 110 cassettes after they're used to repurpose for reuse with recut film stocks of other types. And yes, I do already have a video on that, and it's linked in the description. But here's the bottom line. Orca isn't an amazing film. It's not a great film. It's good, and the results are good, especially by 110 film standards. It's the 110 film I recommend without hesitation, and it's a great way to explore the format in a semi-affordable manner. So, go forth, use and enjoy Orca, and shoot images that embrace the grain and the contrast that this film is going to give you.